Yeah.
No?
I'm documenting today.
Yeah, this is for the club, right?
That's cool.
Everybody knows who I am.
Your name's Bob Crone, right?
Yeah,
And tell us about Gauge 1. What are you running today?
we're running a Baldwin American, 1880 American, with four 47-foot passenger cars and a boxcar in the lead. Butane-fired engine. And the scale of this train is 1 to 20.3. So it is a narrow gauge train, and the track represents 3-foot gauge or 36-inch gauge. The framework for the track was built by a member who has a metal shop, a welding shop, and it's what's his name?
Robert Guzman.
Robert Guzman. Okay, all right. Take two. The Robert Guzman came down and measured the area. He saw my tentative design that I had drawn up, and he measured it all out, and he built this in the shop in sections and brought it down here and bolted it all together. They put the post in the ground and bolted it all together, and Tim Legaly and his son Andy worked on this. There was a bunch of members worked on this, putting this thing together, and they laid the track down, worked like crazy, and got it done so they could have the first trains run it for the spring meet in when was that? 2016, I guess. Yeah, spring meet of 2016. We had trains running on the track. For the larger engines, I believe the minimum radius now is around 12 feet.
Ron at Riverside knows you're interested or want to take a peek at the 10-wheeler one of these days.
Good.
My name's Colin Campbell. I've been a member of the LA Live Steamers since 2012 or 13. So it's been about 5 years, 4 to 5 years. And in that time, I have acquired 2 locomotives. The one that I'm running today is my 4 3/4 inch gauge, 1-inch scale Atlantic. She burns propane for the fire, but she's a live steamer, whether it's propane or not. And she's a pretty good runner, but today she was kind of doggish, so we were not too happy. I wasn't too happy with the way she ran, but she sat for 7 months, so you know, what are you gonna do, right? You know, she's giving me attitude. Tomorrow I'm gonna run her again, and hopefully she's a little better. But my other one, my 3.5 inch gauge, 3/4 inch scale, K4 Pacific. She runs pretty good. I have some axle pump problems, but we'll rectify those pretty quick. But she's a coal burner, and that's always fun. It's very challenging to burn coal, man. You have got to know what you're doing. So I'm glad I started with the Atlantic as my first locomotive, just to be able to get to know what the locomotive is and what it can do and what I'm supposed to do and how to do it. You know, cleaning and oiling and all that kind of stuff. You have to learn that stuff. It's not an innate thing. I'm not saying everything about running a locomotive is hard, but it's nice to get help from the older guys that have been here for years that know this stuff. And so they come over and we start talking about the locomotive and they, hey, you know, this is what I think you should do with this because, you know, blah, blah, blah. And I've had this issue on my, and so you get to talking, and that's, I think, the whole idea of the club is, yes, we want to run our trains, but I think it's about really talking and meeting other people, and especially the guys that know what they're talking about, the guys that actually built locomotives. Because I didn't build the locomotive, I bought them. Someone else built them, which I'm glad that they did, because I'm not a machinist, and if I had to build a locomotive, it would take me 20 years. Because I'd have to learn everything, and I'm a slow learner, because I'm a lot older than I was in school. So, but and then the same thing with the K4. I purchased that, and which you don't see. But my Atlantic, she's a good runner usually, but today for some reason she was just being doggish. But that's okay. That's part of the fun of steaming is you're not always going to get a good steam day. You're just not. Okay, and even though these are real live steam locomotives, they're models. So when you think of a real life-size steam locomotive, they don't always have the same problems that we have in the modeling because everything is condensed down. And when you look at when they design a full-scale locomotive, they're looking at certain parameters that work. In the scaled-down version, they don't always work the same way. And sometimes you'll get two locomotives that are the exact same type, but one burns better and one doesn't. And of course, sometimes it's the operator too, the engineer. But the whole idea is to come out and have fun, and that's what we did today.
So, are you gonna go get?
My name is Alex O'Donnell. I've been with the club for about 10 years now. I am one of the track foremen on the 1-inch scale. I'm also involved with a large expansion of that as well. Today I'm going to be running my Atlantic 442. It was built in the 60s or the 70s, and it's gone through several different owners. It was involved in a serious wreck, and when I acquired it, I restored it and did a lot of work on it to improve it and get it operational again. Still has some issues, working out, but it runs pretty good now. So, with steam, there's always something to do on it. So.
I'm Ted Merchant. I've been a member of Los Angeles Live Steamers for roughly 33 years. I became interested in the hobby when I was in elementary school during the 1950s when anybody was in love with Walt Disney. Disneyland was being built, and everybody wanted to have a model train. And I particularly wanted to have one that I could ride on. However, that was not to be for several decades. Adolescent and young adult years, not engaging with trains. However, I found myself in an office party when I was in my 30s, sitting next to a lady whose father was Tom Crawford, a charter member of Los Angeles Live Steamers, and she was reminiscing about how much fun it was to ride the trains down here at Los Angeles Live Steamers, socialize with Walt Disney, and just dream. And we started talking more seriously about this hobby, and at that point in time the hook was set once again, and I started building a locomotive myself. At that time I didn't know the difference between a tap and a die, but as the years went on, I learned more and more. Everybody laughed at the fact that I never seemed to be completing the locomotive, and I realized after about 10 or 15 years that the objective wasn't really to complete it. It's to be involved with the process and to enjoy the building. So I continue to have an uncompleted Great Northern S2 Northern that runs but is still in a state of incompletion. I'm looking forward to taking it home someday and finishing it up in my garage. But meantime, we're storing it here at Los Angeles Live Steamers, In the meantime, I've also purchased a 2.5-inch gauge 3-truck Heisler, which Ray Burden has been instrumental in helping me get it running and maintaining the locomotive. And we just continue to have a great time here at the club. And I have learned the difference between a tap and a die, and now have a complete machine shop in my home. And I just tinker away. This is a great club, great people. The diversity is just inspiring. With the number of people you can speak to, and there isn't a body that shows up at this club that isn't enjoyable to sit down and talk with and share stories with. And it is anything but a good
have that big pliers on there, and you can break this off real easy. So you have a little press somewhere, then you wouldn't.
You know what, Alex? Yeah. I was thinking about
There you go.
Tiki of trees.
This is Johnny Hoffman, and my grandfather used to bring me here in the 1950s when the club first got started. We'd visit here at Griffith Park, so we added this to our list of places we would visit on Sunday when we'd come to the club. And at that time there were no formal rides. If people were willing to give you a ride, you could get a ride, but mostly it was just about watching the steam engines run. My grandfather had been a chief engineer in the merchant marine in the 1920s, and he had an unlimited steam and diesel license at that time. So he was interested, and he fostered my interest in trains by taking me for rides on what was left of the Pacific Electric in the 1950s. And then over the years, I got involved with 15-inch gauge, 5-inch scale steam trains. A friend and I built a Shay about 45 years ago. But more recently, I decided I wanted something of my own that I had control over. So I was so smitten with Aaron Swain's Fitchburg Northern that I decided to build one. So I went and bought the castings and the drawings from Gene Allen about 10 years ago. And, well, it was in 2005, and then I started building my engine. I didn't have the money for the boiler. I machined all the parts on a Chinese lathe and milling machines that I bought. So in 2010, I brought it here to LALS for the first time, and I've been running it here ever since. And people really enjoy my little Fitchburg Northern just as I enjoy seeing Aaron's. And in fact, Aaron's was here today as well. Glenn brought it. And so it's really fun. This is a great hobby. It's a good family hobby. I don't know what else to tell you.
Hi, my name's Harrison. I'm a member of the LA Live Steamers, and this was an event I created called Steam Day. Steam Day was an event I created because me and a group of friends throughout the years have always talked about getting together a group of guys and calling each other up one day and playing trains. Well, that day has officially come. The Los Angeles Live Steamers Steam Day 2018. So I got to the board of directors and proposed the idea to create said event, and everybody loved the idea. And instead of just calling a group of buddies, we decided to call the entire club. Once we called the entire club, it exploded into an event that will happen for many years to come, because the response I got was unbelievable and the turnout we got was incredible. Everybody had loved it. It brought so many smiles to everybody's faces, and everybody had a great day with it.
I turned the second one on for maybe 30 seconds. I'm never too proud to learn from anybody. He was firing in, and I just wanted to see where he was, compare notes. I'm not the guru. I'm not a...